So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. The preseason is over and the Detroit Lions are on to the 2022 regular season. Official roster cuts have been made and the Lions are now a 53-man roster. And today we're going to take a look at this roster. We're going to go position by position, player by player. We're going to look at the strengths and weaknesses, where they could maybe even look to improve from now to the regular season, and kind of grade the roster as it is today. So with that being said, let's get straight on and starting off with the quarterbacking situation. Now, there was never a question and there was never a doubt that Jared Goff was going to be the quarterback one. He looked really good in the limited action that he saw in the preseason, and he looks to be more confident, looks to be a little bit more just ready for this season. Right, last year it seemed like he was really behind. It seemed like he was either not super comfortable with the play calling, not super comfortable with his teammates. There was something that wasn't quite right last year for Jared Goff, but this year none of that seems to be the case. The chemistry is there with his receivers, the play calling is there, the confidence is there. Jared Goff's confidence is back to where it was when he took the Rams to the Super Bowl in 2018. He is going to be hopefully a very good quarterback, but there was never any doubt about Jared Goff. I think he's a good starting quarterback. I think that he will lead the Lions to quite a few wins this season. Hopefully, he can kind of show that he belongs in the NFL again. I really hope for Jared Goff's sake and for the Lions' sake, because the Lions are only going to go as far as Jared Goff can take them. I hope Jared Goff plays very, very well this season as the starting quarterback. Now, Nate Sudfeld is going to be the backup quarterback. He was the primary backup in the preseason for the San Francisco 49ers. Had a couple really good throws before that. He was the third string quarterback in Philadelphia behind Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts. He is not a great starting quarterback or not a great backup quarterback, but he is better than Tim Boyle. Not hard to do. You could find anybody better than Tim Boyle. He is better than David Blah by a little bit. I think that he's got a better arm. I think he's a little bit more accurate. He's an NFL veteran, so if you needed to plug him in, say day one, right? Jared Goff goes down with an injury early in the first week. I think Nate Sudfeld gives you a better option going into week 2 or week 3, right? I think he's a better option to come in via injury than David Blau would otherwise be. So not a super high-end, backup quarterback, no Kellen Mond, no Gardner Minshew, no Taylor Heineke, right? But I think it was a pretty good signing. A lot of people are upset about it. It's a backup quarterback. It is what it is. At the end of the day, it isn't going to really matter. Moving on to the running back situation, the running backs are extremely thin this year, as the Detroit Lions only currently have 3 of those players on the roster. That being, of course, DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and Craig Reynolds. Those are the only 3 active running backs on the roster. On the practice squad, you do have Justin Jackson, and likely by the end of the day, by early tomorrow, we will see Jamar Jefferson join that practice squad as well. But I do think it is very, very interesting that they are only looking to go with 3 running backs, and the same thing can be said with wide receiver, as they're only carrying 5 guys this season going into the active week 1. Are going into the regular season week 1, right? You obviously have DJ Chark, Josh Reynolds, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then you kept around Tom Kennedy. Nope. Then you kept around Khalif Raymond and Quintez Cephus as your 4 and 5. Now this, I think, is a decent wide receiver core, right? DJ Chark's the pretty obvious one. Josh Reynolds earned a spot as the 2. St. Brown is going to probably really be the wide receiver 2, but work more in that slot and intermediate game. Quintez Cephus is a quality backup. Same thing with Khalif Raymond. Once Jameson Williams gets healthy, he will be slide in probably as the wide receiver 2, if not the wide receiver 1, and you'll be 6 deep there, and they'll cut somebody else from elsewhere on the roster. Going into the season, right, I think that you are maybe a little weak if you're the Detroit Lions going into week 1, I would almost expect you to pull up Tom Kennedy as the 6th wide receiver from the practice squad and then maybe pull up Justin Jackson as the running back 4. But as of right now, they only have 5 active players at the wide receiver position. But a place they did not go very short was the tight end position. They went very heavy on the tight ends that they kept on the roster, keeping TJ Hawkinson, Brock Wright, Shane Zylstra, as well as James Mitchell. James Mitchell, of course, the 5th round pick, was expected to make the roster. Brock Wright played very well, and TJ is TJ. But a surprise to actually make the roster was Shane Zylstra, a tight end who had a pretty good camp, a tight end that I didn't think had the greatest preseason, but very clearly showed something to the Lions training staff that showed he could be a potential receiving threat in this offense. I think a very interesting pickup from there. The offensive line, pretty cut and dry, right? You have Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow, Big V, Penei Sewell as your starting 5. Hopefully they develop and hopefully they live up to their expectation as being potentially the best offensive line in football. And then the backups, again, pretty chalky picks, right? You have Tommy Kramer, you have Logan Stenberg, you have Evan Brown, and then you have Matt Nelson, who started a couple of games last season at right tackle for the Detroit Lions while Taylor Decker was getting healthy. Defensively, again, a lot of things we expected. You have Aleem McNeil, Michael Brockers, Isaiah Buggs, John Kaminsky, Demetrius Taylor, and Levi Onwuzurike as your interior defensive linemen. I would expect on early downs, you would probably see Aleem McNeil and Isaiah Buggs. On some pass rushing downs, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Demetrius Taylor and John Kaminsky get some reps in there. I think they'll rotate around. I think that they all fit a very good role. I think that we have some good players regardless of whether it's a running down or a pass rushing down. Now on the edge, it is pretty obvious, right? It's Charles Harris and Aiden Hutchinson, the backups being Austin Bryant and Julian Okwara. Once Romeo gets healthy, once Josh Pascal gets healthy, they'll be 6 deep there as well. But those guys are the 4 on the roster right now that are actually active and playing in week 1. And moving on to the linebacking core. The linebacking core did surprise me. I was very much expecting both Jared Davis and James Houston to make the roster. Neither of them did, but both ended up on the practice squad as of right now. And the Lions are going into the season with an active linebacking core of Malcolm Rodriguez, Derek Barnes, and Alex Anzalone, of who will probably start. And then you're going to keep Josh Woods and Chris Board. They're keeping 5 linebackers. They have 2 on the practice squad that they can pull up if injuries need be. But again, it's a pretty simple cut and dry, right? You have your 3 starters, you have your 2 special teams contributors, and you have a couple guys on the practice squad if need be. The secondary, I think, again, there's not a whole lot of surprises except for Bobby Price. Bobby Price did end up making the active roster, which I think was a little bit of a surprise. I wasn't expecting Bobby Price to make it, right? I think a lot of people were expecting A.J. Parker over Bobby Price, but Bobby did make it as the 7th cornerback. The others include Amani Oruwariye, Jeff Okudah, Mike Hughes, who I think will start in the slot day 1. And then you, of course, have Will Harris, Chase Lucas, and as I mentioned, Bobby Price. Now, Jerry Jacobs is on the injury reserved. He is on the physically unable to perform list. So once he returns, I think it is expected that he will start in the slot once he gets back into playing shape. But to start the season, those are your 7 corners. And then the Lions kept 5 safeties, including Tracy Walker, Deshaun Elliott, Ifeatu Melifonwu, Kirby Joseph, and then Juju Hughes, a player that did get some time last year for the Lions in a starting role, did also end up making the roster, which I was a little bit surprised about, but I think Juju Hughes is, he's a young player. He works really hard. I think the coaching staff really likes him. So he did end up making it as the 5th safety. And then the special teams trio, pretty standard, right? I think a lot of people expected this. Jack Fox made the roster, Scott Daly made the roster, and then Austin Seibert ended up actually winning the kicking battle this offseason. So that is kind of your 53-man roster. Going into the season on the PUP list or the injured reserve list includes Jameson Williams, Josh Pascal, Romeo Okwara, Jerry Jacobs, and Jason Kabinda. I think a lot of people are expecting a majority, if not all of those players to return after week 4 when they are eligible to do so. Jameson Williams may take a few extra weeks, but once those guys come back, the roster looks pretty strong, and they look, to me at least, like a 7 to 8 win kind of team. Now, the practice squad does only have 13 players on it right now. Those 13 players are Justin Jackson, Tom Kennedy, Maurice Alexander, Derek Deese Jr., Garrett Griffin, Dan Skipper, Abini Azee, James Houston, Bruce Hector, Jared Davis, Anthony Pittman, Savion Smith, as well as A.J. Parker. I would expect them to add both David Blau and Jamar Jefferson to the practice squad once they clear waivers, and that leaves 1 spot available for a potential opening or just somebody that they find on a different roster or whatever the case may be. That is officially the 53 plus the 15-man practice squad. So with that being the case, that is the Detroit Lions starting of 53 right now. That is the Lions opening day roster. There are probably going to be some changes. There's probably going to be a few signings. There's probably going to be a few cuts from the depth, right? There's going to be waiver wire pickups. There's going to be potentially a trade or two that goes on. But for right now, and for all intents and purposes, this is the roster going into the season. This is the roster that will take the field versus Philadelphia on September the 11th. And this is hopefully the roster that will take the Lions to their ceiling. But with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought and what you think about this first look at the Lions roster. How good do you think this team can be? If this 53 stays how it is, do you think this team wins 6 games? Do you think they win 7? With this roster, what do you think their ceiling is, and what is your winning predictions for the 2022 Lions? I'd be very curious what you guys think. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!